Welcome to Insights. I'm Dick Goldberg, and our program today is on the psychology of philanthropy. What causes people to give to nonprofits and charities and the arts? What works and what doesn't when you're fundraising? And what can we learn about the psychology and rewards to the giver? Our guest today is Martha Taylor. She's the Vice President of the University of Wisconsin Foundation, an enormous foundation. She's been there for 35 years. She also co-founded the Women's Philanthropy Institute, which is now a program at Indiana University where she is an adjunct faculty member. She has co-authored 3 books on philanthropy. Martha, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Dick.
Question of the day to start with is, are Americans philanthropic? Are they generous?
Absolutely, absolutely. And they are more generous than any other nation. Our country is the most generous. And I think the reason is that beginning in the pre-dawn of this country, we had religious groups coming over here, and they had the idea of sharing with others. That was a principal part of the whole makeup of America when it was founded. And so I believe very strongly in this idea of the 3 aspects of our life: nonprofits, government, and business, that we all have a sense of the common good in America, and that we are all working toward a better country, a better world, each in our own different sectors.
Given that, and we're the most generous, what percentage of people's incomes as Americans do they give to charity, churches, nonprofits?
It's about 2%, Dick.
2%.
But the 2 largest groups that give are really the poorest, and then those of about $150,000 to $200,000 a year. And
they tend to give more than their 2%.
Well, about 2%. But I think one of the things that it should be pointed out is that what skews the figures is that above that income level, the $150,000, $200,000, is that there's non-givers. And the actual givers give a larger percent. So that's what skews the figures. So, okay, those of us in the philanthropy field want to move the dial for everyone.
I can see, because I've read the numbers that it's about 2% across the board on all incomes, a little ups and downs on the way, but never knew that reason. I would think the rich would give a higher percentage. People who make $2 million a year, you think would give a higher percentage.
Yes.
But you're saying those who do give a higher percentage.
Yes, those who give. So it's the ones who don't give that we are trying to influence to think about giving. Well, as a statistician
that I'm not, the question would be, well, is there a higher percentage of non-givers among the very rich than the middle class?
That I don't know, Dick. I would have to research it.
Right.
That's a very good question.
Yeah. The categories. When we look at when people do give their money away, are they giving it more to church, nonprofits, the arts?
The number one is religion. And, of course, that is basic to a lot of people, is religious giving. And I think the other ones are education is very high. The health is also very high.
What do you mean by health?
Well, health, hospitals, research on health, very, very important in our society. I think down the categories then is the environment. We give to the environment, the arts, of course, and then internationally, that percentage has increased in recent years. I think there's been a lot of emphasis in American society about Americans as individuals, not just the government, helping people internationally.
The percentage of giving has increased?
Yes, of international causes.
For international causes. Oh, I see. Are most people thoughtful about how they give? Let me use moi as an example.
Okay.
I get lots of mail.
Yes.
And I might go, how can I say no? It's Thanksgiving and they want to buy turkeys for the homeless. How can I say no?
I know.
And I write a check. But I'm not planning sometimes. Are most people like me that just respond to what comes at them, or do most people sit and plan for the year?
Well, I think most people are probably like you, Dick. But we work in the philanthropy field to really, I think, engaged people in the idea of being a strategic philanthropist.
Explain that.
And that's what I'm very interested in, is donor education, because I think this is where we do move the needle on philanthropy in the country. If people know they have a plan and they have set their priorities, then they become more generous because they know they have a plan and they can see their impact and the results. What I always recommend to people is what I have learned. First of all, everything I know is really from talking to wonderful philanthropists who give to the university, but other things. And in the course of writing the books, it was very fun to go around and talk to philanthropists, and that I wasn't the development officer, I was the author. And then people told me everything. So it was wonderful, and they shared with me their ideas on how to be a more effective giver. I think one of the people I love, her name is Barbara Stein in Milwaukee, she said, I want to be a gifted giver. I always liked that.
That's nice.
And what the idea is that you sit down and you determine what your priorities are. And I always talk about having 3 pillars of philanthropy in our philanthropy plan. So you give your larger gifts to those 3 causes that you're really interested in the year. But then you leave yourself some amount of money in your budget, in your philanthropy budget, that you want to give when you get a solicitation
Right.
about the turkey, that you feel you just want to give on impulse.
So what I'm hearing is be smart. Think about, okay, I make $83,000 a year. I'm going to give away $7,000.
Correct.
And I'm going to give 5 to these main causes and 2, well, just be wild cards of how I give. Something
Absolutely.
like that. That's a good plan?
Very
What
good.
percentage of Americans do you think do that?
I don't know. That would
I
be
know.
a good research project, too.
I don't, intuitively, I would guess 3%.
Yeah.
Very small, right?
Maybe so. Maybe
I
so.
have no idea.
I don't either, but that would be a good study.
Yeah. But let's get to the psychology of giving. What motivates the giver to give money? Why do people give money away?
The first reason they do is the common sense is a sense of mission about the organization and what it's going to accomplish. And that is across the board for men, women, everyone. What is the mission of the organization? Mm-hmm. And some people who feel that no one is fulfilling the mission they see needs to be done in society, they create their own nonprofits and decide to do something with their philanthropy that they feel society is not doing.
This is an exceptional person. I'm kind of
Yes.
trying to address the average Dick and Jane.
Yes.
And what motivates them.
But it's surprising how many people will start their
really?
own. Oh, yes. It's surprising. People of average means.
Ah.
But I would recommend that people search for an organization that will partner with them to fulfill their need. Because it does happen. People just say, I want to start a nonprofit. There's a lot of them in Madison, a lot of them that start up. And so what happens is you get a duplication. And I think that's one of the issues that people have a hard time with. When you are asked to give to give a turkey at Thanksgiving, a lot of people are asking you that. Which organization do you choose? So I think that is a difficult thing in society, to pick between similar organizations.
Well, one thing that comes to my mind is we all seek pleasure, happiness, avoid pain. What is the pleasure in giving? What do people get out of giving?
What a great question, Dick. To me, first of all, I want to say over the course of my almost 40 years in the field of philanthropy, my observation is that people who are more philanthropic are happier. And there are actually studies that show this. Why are people happier? Because they are sharing with others. It gives them a great sense of self-worth. You asked about some of the motivations for giving. Mission, I mentioned, is the first one. Second is a sense of gratitude. Some people may say it's obligation. I like to use the word gratitude. Gratitude for, what we have, who we are, our families, the community, the world.
But wait a minute.
So you have, yes,
let me interrupt
yes.
this, because you can be grateful.
Yes.
I mean, I do that sometimes. I actually sit down and write, and I know it's good for your mental health, all the things you have to be grateful
Yes.
for. Doesn't make me want to write a check.
Well, but it's one of the motivations that people have for giving is that they know they have resources and they think of other people who don't, or they want to make the world better.
How does that make them feel good?
It gives them a sense that they are making an impact, that they have a legacy on this earth that is beyond them.
Okay, well,
And
now,
that's huge.
if you get something in the mail saying there's these poor people in this country or in Mississippi, whatever, and you write a check, do you feel you've created a legacy?
No, I think you do feel you're helping people, and the immediate response from you is you're doing good in the world. But I think when you are the strategic philanthropist, as I mentioned earlier, then you really have a sense that you are directing your giving to represent and reflect your values and responding to need in the world. Need and also opportunity to create a better world. And to me,
But you're talking about the super philanthropist.
no, I'm not. I'm thinking, okay, if you add up, all right, just think in your mind, Dick, and I'm saying to all the listeners, how much you give this year.
Okay.
Okay. Now,
2% is what most
how
of us say.
how long are you, but again, the 2% includes the zero givers.
Right, so the givers might give 4 or 5%.
Yes, they might. And some people give 10 and 20.
Right.
So think of how much you give in a given year. Now, what's your life expectancy?
Okay.
Now, if you add that up, that is a large amount of money.
Well, I agree. It's a large
Yes.
amount of money. I'm trying to get
Yes.
to what's going on in their head when they give
Right.
that motivates them.
Right.
I don't
yes.
think they're thinking, oh, let's add this up and how many,
Right.
oh my God, look how much I gave in my whole life. That's not what causes you to write that check that day.
No, it isn't. But if but you were talking about the empowerment of people, why they feel they've made an impact.
Yeah.
So I think it helps them if they do this mental exercise of adding it up and saying, you are really making a difference.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think is to view your $100 or your $25 as part of a larger group, and that people are collaborating by supporting an organization with smaller gifts, and that they truly do make a difference. I think, for example, for most organizations like the university, any university, or any arts group, those kind of $25, $100 gifts go into an unrestricted fund that the director and the board of directors can use, that operate the organization or do special things, and those kinds of dollars are really very effective.
You bet. You bet.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at different human emotions.
Yes.
Okay, I'm a therapist, so I can't help myself here in terms of getting out of this kind of realm you're in to the guts and soul of a human being.
Yes.
Is it conscience? Is it recognition? Is it because they have a good heart? Is it
They have a
religious
good
dickens?
heart. It's all of those things, Dick, for different people. And I don't think you can say every person is the same. That's why it's very hard. I have to kind of talk to each person. But, of course, you do have national studies on what are the motivations of giving.
Tell us.
And number one is mission. Mission.
They like the mission of that organization.
And the second is this idea of gratitude. People call it obligation, civic responsibility.
Give back. We're lucky, so give back.
Exactly.
Fortunate, not lucky. Okay.
We're fortunate, lucky. That is the second highest. I think the third is a confidence in the organization itself and its leaders. And so you look at people who are more generous tend to also volunteer or get involved or know the organization, because then they know the leadership, and that is very important, is that you have confidence in the leadership, and you may even have a relationship with people involved in the organization.
So if you are a nonprofit and you want to get gifts, one strategy is how can we get more and more people involved as volunteers or in some way so they get to know you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Very important. Another thing is this sense of self-worth, this idea of that you are doing something beyond yourself, beyond your family, to impact and help others. And that's the word philanthropy, is helping other human beings.
How does that make you feel?
So it makes you feel good. Generous people, as I said, are more happy. One of the other things we always say is if people give a planned gift, those people live the longest.
Darn.
Because they are happy.
Yeah.
They know they have helped others.
Well, now which comes first, though? Maybe a happy person is a more generous person.
It's true. It's true.
I mean, you know.
How do we know that? Yeah. I don't know.
It might. Well, there you are. You don't know that this giving money away makes you happy. It might be just people who are content and happy tend to be more philanthropic.
Absolutely, Dick. We don't know, do we?
No.
But maybe it is that just in general, happier people are more philanthropic. So we don't go see the Grouches. No.
There's a couple of things you didn't mention that I think are interesting, at least for me to explore with you. One is spirituality and giving.
Yes. And I have jotted that down as something that's very, very, very important. But you look at, for many, many people, they believe that all things come from God. Money, their physical body, their everything they have, time, treasure, and talents. And so the idea in all religions is to help others. It is in every single religion, because it is a spiritual aspect of human beings. But you read in the in the New York Times recently, it was something like 19% of the people in the world now are not affiliated with religion. So we still have to talk about the spiritual aspects of giving with those people, because there is definitely a spiritual aspect of philanthropy.
It's hard to describe, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And it's beyond this issue of feeling self-worth in giving, but it is beyond our understanding, really.
But for those who are believers,
yes,
it does align with the feeling that they're living up to their religious values.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And all the studies show people who go to their synagogue or their church on a weekly basis are more generous, by far.
Wow. Is that because they're giving more to their church or synagogue?
Could be. Yeah. Could be. And that's another thing to look at. But in general, they are more philanthropic. I like to quote a lot of different people when I give speeches, but one of the people I love quoting the best is a woman named Sylvia Hewlett, and she wrote a book about the caring of children in America. And at the end of her book, I always use this quote to end a lot of speeches, is that she talks about the impact of giving to help needy children. And then I always say, but substitute your own cause. But she says at the end, giving to help needy children is like touching the face of God.
Lovely. There's a subject I'm dying to talk to you about.
Okay.
Recognition and giving.
Yes.
How much of, let's say, moderate to large giving is related to the recognition you get for doing it?
Very good question. I do think too much attention is paid to this recognition issue, because also I do think there's a real gender difference on this issue. Okay. And
can I guess?
Yes.
You're going to say women don't need it as much as men, right?
Yes. They want recognition in different ways.
Oh.
Different ways than men. Men are more apt to say, I want my name on a building.
Yeah.
Okay. Or whatever. But women will want recognition for her family or someone else. Her recognition is not the thing to lead when you're going to meet with a woman. And it's also not for some men. You just have to know the stereotype about the, high level businessman who always is in a very competitive environment and is looking to promote the business, whatever, that wants publicity. That person, it's really more effective to go and talk to them right away about recognition.
Their name on the building or whatever.
Yes, yes. But for other philanthropists, not at all. And especially a lot of women. And whether that was socialized to be that way, or what I think it's just a socialization of what's acceptable. Some people do not want recognition because of their religion either. Is that they're taught the anonymous giver is more exalted in the eyes of God, and so they don't want to have any recognition. So you have to be very sensitive to each person.
That's interesting. I know I've asked people who run nonprofits about this, and I've pretty universally heard very few give gifts anonymously. Some do, but it's a small percentage.
But but it's surprising a lot. We have a lot of anonymous gifts, and traditionally a lot of it were women. I mean, at big amounts, they do not want people to know who they are.
Any idea for your foundation of larger gifts, what percentage of the dollars are anonymous?
I do not know. However, I can say with some of the people I've worked with, it's not, maybe 10%.
Okay, it's still a minority.
It's definitely a minority. Yeah. But those people feel very, very strongly about it for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, well, that is really, really interesting. I just share with you, I was working with an organization in my hometown that was trying to build a structure to help women with cancer. And I dropped off the board because they wouldn't allow any naming recognitions. And I thought this is going to be impossible.
Right.
And it took a few years. Later, they found a famous person to run the board and bring in people. But and I know you're the guest, but I just want to share this.
Yes.
That there was another nonprofit that had different levels of recognition: $1,000, $750, $500, and the $1,000 was the highest they had for this annual pledge drive. And I asked the administrator, of those people, the 15 people who gave $1,000 or more, how many gave more than $1,000? Zero. They all gave exactly $1,000, and then their name.
Yes. A lot of times those gift clubs create a ceiling for giving rather than a floor.
But it does show motivation, doesn't it? Recognition.
It does. But of course, a lot of organizations, a lot of universities do not even print an honor roll of levels. What instead they do is you are a member of a certain group, so that if you give a certain amount of money, you're invited to things, but it's not published.
I see.
So it's interesting. And other nonprofits, smaller nonprofits, will publish the different levels, and that may be a motivation to move up a level. And indeed, it might. Indeed, it might.
Okay. If you were observing people raising money for a good cause, and you just shook your head saying, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, what are some really dumb ways to try to raise money?
I think a dumb way to raise money is to say, if only 100 people gave $1,000. Instead, say, our goal is 100 people to give $1,000. But if you say, what if everybody who lived in your community gave $1 for this? It's not going to happen, and it's going to create a ceiling for some of the donors. So the idea is you instead saying, we encourage people to give according to their needs very generously, and we hope everyone will participate. Just slight different use of the language. It's exactly the same idea. But if you say, if only every whatever person gave $50, no, it doesn't. It creates a ceiling for some people.
Another thing about motivation is premiums. You watch public television, they're always saying, if you give it this level, we'll give you 1 tape. If you give it this level, we'll give you 2.
Yes.
And that must work.
It works for public TV because it's fun. I used to be on the board of a public TV station, and I love it way back when, 25 years ago. But I think for them, it's also a relationship with their product, which is the program. And so going back to the idea of involving people, it creates that personal relationship with those, characters we see in that program we love. So I view it as more as, yes, it's a recognition, but it's also an involvement piece.
Okay, that makes sense. Age and sex. Do older people give more than younger people?
Yes, they do. They
Why?
do. Well, they're at the point in their life to have the resources and know they have the resources. And of course, obviously, some people who just live off their social security check have a challenging time and may give their $5 here and there.
Sure.
But they do. They give their $5 here and there, $10.
Do they feel as good as the multimillionaire who gives $50,000?
I hope they do. I hope they do, because it matters. That $5 for that widow's mite, the story in the Bible of the widow giving everything she had. That story always inspires all of us, doesn't it?
I don't know that I know that story.
Yes, it's a wonderful story, Dick.
We'll leave it there. And men versus women in being philanthropic.
Yes. Well, new studies have shown that actually women are more philanthropic. But you have to look at, again, the income. And that a lot of women don't have as much income. With all people, though, there are three sources of how you get money. There is your name on the paycheck. There is you married it, or you inherited it. So the psychology of people, their source of money, makes a big difference on their giving.
Okay, the heirs, how are they different than the people that made their own fortune?
They're not as secure as the people who have earned their money.
Financially secure or emotionally?
No, they're not as emotionally. And the psychology of how many generations are you away from the source of money? Huge difference in the psychology of when you are working with.
Okay, so we're looking at someone with a net worth of $20 million who made it all and they're 60, versus someone who's 60 and inherited it at 28 and has been kind of a poet all their life, not selling.
Correct.
That poet is going to be less generous with her $20 million?
Yeah, because she's afraid she's going to run out of money. See, she's afraid because she doesn't have the ability. See, especially entrepreneurs, there's been a lot of studies on like Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. That's a subset of the group that earns, or the name on paycheck. They are very generous. Okay, because they feel they can make it again tomorrow.
That's interesting.
And also the other idea of, if you look at the inheritors, you look at maybe the person who owned it views money as a river that you can always just scoop it out, and it's more is coming.
Yeah.
The person who's inherited maybe views it as a lake or a pond. Is that it's going to run out of water?
Yeah, sure.
And that's just, it's kind of common sense. But these studies have shown this. So one of the issues, a great lot of literature in the field, and those of us who have multi-generations who are involved with a nonprofit, is you have to look at the family dynamics. So there's a lot of family foundations now, and families giving money away. You have to know all this before you go and talk to a family, so that the first generation is going to maybe want to give more than the... Is there
any particular appeal you make to the heir versus the person who made the dough that is more effective to that heir than...
Well, you have to start talking to them about their own philanthropic interests. And also, you may not be asking them quite so much for a major gift immediately. You may, what I always do both with, women and men, but primarily a lot of women are afraid they're going to run out of money because they did not have their name on the paycheck or they inherited it. And that's changing. Again, you talked about generations. That's changing, but still a lot of women are either the married or inherited it. So they're going to be more cautious. So when you're working with those people, you start to talk about what their vision is for making a better world, and you talk about a plan gift. And then all of a sudden, a few years later...
Plan gift is when you die?
When you die.
Yeah.
So a bequest
Well, who's
or
scared about
trust-
that? If you're afraid of running out of money, it's okay when you die. What's the risk?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's why you focus on that.
Yeah.
So you don't, make
Yes.
people feel uncomfortable. And you talk about what their vision is. And again, going back to this idea of figuring out maybe 1, 2, or 3, focusing your giving and making it very effective that way. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, somebody calls up and says, is it okay if I start doing that now?
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Now, I'm hearing underneath all this, you have a mission of getting people or encouraging them to be more philanthropic.
Yes.
As we close, I allow you the opportunity to tell people why it's in their interest to be more philanthropic.
First of all, if you look at it selfishly, Dick, it does make you feel better and happier and gives you a greater sense of worth. And the reason is you are making a difference in the world to help others. And what is more better and satisfying in life and more meaningful? And to many people, the decisions they make about their philanthropy are some of the most meaningful decisions they will ever make in their life and give them the most self-satisfaction.
Martha Taylor, thank you very much for being with us. I hope you've increased a little level of generosity, and I hope you'll join us on the next edition of Insights.